You know, my favorite thing about being a pastor are the moments that I get to sit down next to you and just get to hear about how things are going in your life, right? You'll try to share some things with me, I'll share some things with you, and hopefully we're giving one another some wisdom. Well, today we're going to be in Ecclesiastes, and we've made it to chapter 7 in our Bible reading plan. And in chapter 7, King Solomon begins to give us some wisdom. It's like the tide has changed, and all of a sudden Solomon is an older man, and he's sharing with some younger audience, and he's saying, here's some things I need you to hear. Here's some wisdom I want to give you. Join me. Chapter 7, verse 1. Solomon says, a good name is better than fine perfume. Now, you know how you and I, we do this, right? We don't want to take a shower, so we just grab the cologne, we put a spray here, we're out the door. Solomon says that doesn't really work. He said, you can do all the surgeries you want to do. You can do as many reps as you want to do. You can go as many diets as you want to go on. He says, but the thing people value is character. He said, your outward experience, your outward expression, the way that you look, the car you drive, the house you live in, he says, it's only so good. Because what me and you really care about is our character. Now, this really got real for Katie and I. Remember, we just found out we were pregnant, and we were trying to do all the right things, getting ready for our first son. And we sat down with an older couple, and we asked them, said, hey, give us some wisdom. What do we need to know as parents? And they said things you would expect. Get involved in a church, pray for your kids. And then they said, listen, I want to challenge you with this. They said, would you care more about the condition of their heart than their manners? And I thought for a second, because listen, I was born in Hattiesburg. My wife was born in Tupelo. We're Southern people. We're from Mississippi. We believe in yes, sir, and no, sir, and yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, right? I feel weird not having my shirt tucked in right now, right? Comb your hair, all those things. And they're important. But what Solomon says, he says, the thing that really values is the condition of your heart. Listen, if you're dating someone right now, I need you to hear this because, man, they might be the perfect 10. They might be beautiful on the outside, but what is their character like? Are they as beautiful on the inside as they are on the outside? Now, he keeps on. He's not done. Solomon goes on to say, he says, the day of death is better than the day of birth. Now, when you and I hear that, we think, Solomon, you're getting kind of old, man. What do you mean by that? Well, what he's saying is when we're born, it's all about possibilities. And we daydream about that. We plan for that. We wonder about that. What's our life going to be like? What's it going to look like? But he says the day of death is better because at the day of death, you're able to look back. And you're able to see real relationships. You're able to talk about things that happened in your life. You're able to celebrate things that God has done in your life. Solomon says, listen, don't cry for me. Man, my life is on loan and I've had a great life. And I start thinking about that. Even in my life, I'm almost 42 and I've had a great life. I mean, I've got to marry the beautiful woman and man, she's incredible. We've had great memories. We've traveled together. We've laughed together. I've got to have my kids call me daddy, right? We've seen great sunsets. We've cooked great steaks. We've laughed with friends. We've done all these things. And what Solomon is saying is don't cry for me. I mean, sure, I want to meet my grandkids. I want to see my kids grow old. I want to live for a day where my kids can serve me and buy me things, all right? I'm selfish like that. But if the Lord were to take me today, what Solomon is saying is to live is gain, but to die is gain. When I die, I'm going to be with Jesus in eternity. Don't cry for me. Things are better in the life to come than in the life that we're living today. Now, Solomon doesn't stop there. And again, he's an older man. He's opening up his heart. He's just giving you and I some wisdom. And then he really lays it on thick. He says in verse 4, he says, the heart of the wise is in the house of mourning. Now, that shocks me. I don't understand that. The heart of fools is in the house of pleasure. What he's saying is he gives us an example. He says it's like there's two different houses. He says one house is the house of mourning. And the other house, he says, is the house of pleasure. Now, you and I, we're drawn to the house of pleasure. I mean, that's where we want to stay. It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Let's celebrate. Things get difficult. Let's just keep going. But what Solomon says, he says there's some things that we learn in difficult seasons in the house of mourning. He says that's where you find the wise. He says, the wise allow difficult things to get their attention. Now, we just finished a 3-week series on Job. I don't want to talk about pain. And I'll be honest with you, just my personality, I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. I want to keep things real high, real positive, real fun. In fact, when things get difficult, I'm a jumper. And I'll leave this relationship for this relationship just because this one might be getting difficult. I'll leave this job for that job just because this job might be difficult. In my 20s, I had about 3 or 4, I think I had 5 different jobs in a matter of a real short time. And the problem wasn't the job, the problem was me. And I've noticed this, even in my marriage, if it weren't for my wife, we would not have grown the way we've grown because, man, she makes me have difficult conversations. She makes me stay in moments that are difficult. What Solomon is saying is you can only learn so much in laughter. He's saying it's in pain, it's in difficult times that God does a great work. So how do you handle difficulties? What do you do? When things get difficult in your life, do you lean into harmful habits? Do you avoid it? Do you just reframe it? Or are you willing to stay long enough so that God can do a work in your life? What Solomon says is you can't outrun your feelings. You have to stay in them long enough to deal with them. Now, let's keep going. Verse 5, Solomon says it's better to heed a wise man's rebuke than to listen to the song of fools. Now, I love the song of fools. The Song of Fools is praises, it's laughter, it's a lot of fun, it's encouragement. But Solomon says, man, there's a place for that. But he says the thing you need to heed, the thing you need to listen to is a wise man's rebuke. Now, I started thinking about how I handle rebuke. I typically do three things. One, I deny it. No, that's not true. Yeah. Two, I spin it, right? Like, hey, that might be true of me now, but if you could have seen me 10 years ago, man, it was so much worse. Or if you would have known the way I was raised, or if you'd have seen the generation before me, spin it. Or three, sometimes I play the spiritual card. Well, let me, you're asking me about the speck in my eye. What about the log in your eye? So you see what happens when someone's trying to be honest with you and give you honest feedback. How do you handle that? Are you humble enough to listen to that, to receive that? Listen, you need to hear me on this one, okay? I'm just giving you a testimony in my life. Man, I've got to learn to listen to wise counsel more. When my wife shares things with me, it's because she loves me, because she cares for me, because she knows me, and she wants to save me from me. But I got to be able to receive that. How do you receive honest feedback? Maybe the thing you're saying is, listen, I don't get a lot of honest feedback. Well, ask for it. Now, this is risky, but do ask for it. Next time you're around a buddy that you find wise, that's what Psalm says, a wise friend, ask him, hey, what's it like to be my friend? Maybe even ask your boss, ask your team leader, or ask one of your employees, what's it like to work for me? What's it like for me to work for you? If you're really feeling bold, now listen, I don't know that I encourage you to do this, but if you're feeling bold, ask your husband, what's it like to be married to me? Ask your wife, what's it like for me to be your husband? And be willing to receive some honest feedback. Now, Solomon ends things right here in verse 6. He says, like the crackling of thorns under the pot, so is the laughter of fools. This too is meaningless. Now, Solomon's, again, he's old. He's sharing some wisdom. One of his 700 wives or 300 concubines comes and checks on him in this moment. And Solomon says, no, you got to hear this. He says, it's like the crackling, I love this, the crackling of thorns under the pot. Last time, you throw a dead stick or thorns in a fire and they crackle, they make noise, but they don't really do anything. He said, would you be so careful? He says, when you sense smoke, when you sense things aren't just right with your husband or your wife, with your team, with your employees, with a friendship, with your kids, he says, investigate. And I think Solomon would stand up for this. He's getting passionate. He's saying, I've seen wise people, I've seen great warriors, I've seen great kings, and they've laughed. Instead of giving their full attention and their care to things that were going wrong, he says, when you smell smoke, investigate it. Don't just blow by it. Make time to deal with it. We do this. We're driving down the road and we see smoke a long way off. What do? Looks like there's a fire over there. I hope they're okay. Got to be with them. Hey, what y'all want from Sonic? Where we going? And we go right by it. We don't stop and investigate. I'm reading a book. It's called The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. Listen to this and I'm done. It says, the problem is we want to run so fast and have so many irons in the fire that even the best of people will be so consumed that they can't make time to deal with the smoke. Would you make time to deal with the smoke in your life? Final thing, listen, when you sense smoke, be honest about it. Ask someone for wisdom. Take a step towards healing. Here's the last thing to take home with you. The pain of staying the same. Man, the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain to change. You can do it. When you sense smoke, investigate and let God give you the courage to begin to change. Thanks for being with us today.